Ranjana Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Srimad. His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, entitled Liberation, Chapter 18, entitled King Yayati Regained His Youth, text number 40. Sri Jadur Uvacha Notsahe Jarasha Statum Antara Praptaya Tava Ividitva Shukam Gramyam Vaitrishyam Naiti Purushaha. Sri Jaduruvacha Nutsaheja Rashasthanum Statum Antara Praptaya Tava Aviditva Shukam Gramyam Vaitrishyam Naiti Purushaha. Notsaheja Rashastatum Antara Praptaya Tava Aviditva Shukam Gramyam Vaitrishyam Naiti Purushaha. Please chant. Shri Jadur Uvacha Notsaheja Rasastatum Antara Praptaya Tava Aviditva Shukam Gramyam Vaitrishyam Naiti Purushaha. Sri Jadur Uvacha Notsaheja Rasasthatum Antara Praptaya Tava Aviditva Shukam Gramyam Vaitrishnam naiti purushaha. Sri Jadu Uvacha. Jadu, the eldest son of Yayati, replied, Na utsahe, I am not enthusiastic. Jarasa, with your old age and invalidity. Statum, to remain. Antara, while in youth. Praptaya, accepted. Tava, your. Aviditva, without experiencing. Shukam, happiness. Gramyam, material or bodily. Vaistrinyam, indifference to material enjoyment. Na, does not. Eti, attain. Purushaha, a person. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jadu replied, My dear father, you have already achieved old age, although you also were a young man. But I do not welcome your old age and invalidity, for unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation. Purport. Renunciation of material enjoyment is the ultimate goal of human life. Therefore, the Varnashram institution is most scientific. It aims at giving one the facility to return home, back to Godhead, which one cannot do without completely renouncing all connections with the material world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajano Mukhasya. One who wants to go back home, back to Godhead, must be niskinchana, free from all affinity for material enjoyment. Brahmani upashamashrayam. Unless one is fully renounced, one cannot engage in devotional service or stay in Brahman. Devotional service is rendered on the Brahman platform. Therefore, unless one obtains the Brahman platform or a spiritual platform, one cannot engage in devotional service. Or, in other words, a person engaged in devotional service is already on the Brahman platform. Manchajo vyavicharena bhakti yogena shevate sagunan samatityaitam brahma bhujaya kalpate. Quote, one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus become to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. If one obtains devotional service, therefore, he is certainly liberated. Generally, unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot obtain renunciation. Varnashram therefore gives the opportunity for gradual elevation. Jadu, the son of Maharaj Yayati, explained that he was unable to give up his youth, for he wanted to use it to attain the renounced order in the future. Maharaj Jadu was different from his brothers, as stated in the next verse. Durvashu chodita pitra druhyus chanu cha bharata pratyachakyur adharma gya. Maharaj Jadu's brothers refused to accept the father's proposal because they were not completely aware of dharma. To accept orders that follows religious principles, especially the orders of one's father, is very important. Therefore, when the brothers of Maharaj Jadoo refused their father's order, this was certainly irreligious. Maharaj Jadoo's refusal, however, was religious, as stated in the 10th canto, Yados Chat Dharmasya Shilaya. Maharaj Jadoo was completely aware of the principles of religion. The ultimate principle of religion is to engage oneself in devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Jadoo was very eager to engage himself in the Lord's service, but there was an impediment. During youth, the material desire to enjoy the material senses is certainly present. And unless one fully satisfies these lofty desires in youth, there is a chance of one being disturbed in rendering service to the Lord. We have actually seen that many sannyasis who accept sannyas prematurely, not having satisfied their material desires, fall down because they are disturbed. Therefore, the general process is to go through Grihastha life and Vanaprastha life, and finally come to sannyas and devote oneself completely to the service of the Lord. Maharaj Jadoo was ready to accept his father's order and exchange youth for old age because he was confident that the youth taken by his father would be returned. But because this exchange would delay his complete engagement in devotional service, he did not want to accept his father's old age, for he was eager to achieve freedom from disturbances. Moreover, among the descendants of Jadoo will be Lord Krishna. Therefore, because Jadoo was eager to see Lord Krishna's appearance in his dynasty as soon as possible, Jadoo refused to accept his father's proposal. This was not irreligious, however, because Jadoo's purpose was to serve the Lord. Because Jadoo was a faithful servant of the Lord, Lord Krishna appeared in his dynasty, as confirmed in the prayers of Kunti, Jado Priya Shyamvavaye. Jadoo was very dear to Lord Krishna, who was therefore eager to descend in the Jadoo dynasty. In conclusion, Maharaj Jadoo should not be considered a dharmagya, ignorant of religious principles, as the next verse designates his brothers. He was like the 4 Shanakas, Chatur Shana, who refused the order of their father Brahma for the sake of a better cause. Because the 4 Kumaras wanted to engage themselves completely in the service of the Lord as brahmacharis, their refusal to obey their father's order was not irreligious. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Umilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Bhutale Srimate Prabhupada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Satarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasha Kripasindu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Pretty fascinating purport. It allows to know that Dharma is not just one specific concept, but is actually they have many different levels. And these different levels is according to the consciousness of the groups, the individuals or groups in which, Dharma applies. So the conclusion is that it's not such a simple thing to define Dharma and to understand Dharma and how to, what is the right application of Dharma in a particular circumstance or for a particular person. It requires a very deep understanding and of how this whole system of religion works. You have to be a very elevated and knowledgeable person to understand that. We know from the Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna tells Krishna that he was very perplexed in the process of trying to understand what is his Dharma, what is the right choice according to Dharma that he have to make. And he was very confused about it. So therefore he comes to Krishna. He comes to the conclusion that I must become your disciple. And you tell me what is Dharma, what is my Dharma. So, not a simple thing to understand. One requires guidance. One requires the guidance and the instructions of someone who is a Tattvadarshi, who have fully understood the whole truth of not only the personality of Godhead, but also God's creation and the application of that. So today is the disappearance days of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, and it's a very auspicious time. We're fasting till noon, celebrating the legacy of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So later we speak about more specific on the pastimes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. But these great personalities such as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada, were able to understand the perfect application of Dharma according to time, place, and circumstances. And in the case of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, actually, these great acharyas in our line, coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the personality of Godhead, but in the modern times, that is immediately that we find quite connected to and affected by the visionary application of the process of religion, a very clear understanding of what is called the Yuga Dharma, the specific principles of religions that are tailored to these times. These three great acharyas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada, were able to completely understanding the time, the place, and the circumstances, the people, their capacity, were able to prescribe the proper application. So we can actually understand it and benefit. Otherwise, without them, it's complete confusion. To the point that what appears to be Dharma degrades into Adharma. Exactly what the Bhagavad Gita said. Without transcendental knowledge, there is no question of understanding what is Dharma and what is Adharma. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that persons who are ignorant of transcendental knowledge, who are covered by the mortal passion and ignorance, then they consider adharma to be dharma and dharma to be adharma. So these great acharyas were revolutionaries. They basically as representatives of Krishna, they were able to establish the proper path of Dharma. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur established the supremacy of the teachings of the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And he was able, with his genius, to spread that all over India. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta took and continued the vision of the revolutionary vision of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and was able to further basically create a blueprint of a worldwide movement. And based on this principle of Yukta Vairagya, which was quite revolutionary, but it is within the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's at the core of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is you use the thing of this world for the purpose of serving Krishna. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta showed by his example that all the things that were created by the modern man, machines and all kinds of, modern things, manufacture, mass manufacture, the product of the industrial revolution that started to completely explode during the 20th century. He took that and showed how to use it for the glorification of Krishna. And it was quite a revolutionary thing, for those who were followers, the so-called followers of the Vedas. And with that, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta created a whole blueprint to actually bring Krishna consciousness to every town and village in the world. And he passed that mission to Srila Prabhupada, who was able to carry out that blueprint and establish it all over the world. And they all made certain adjustments on the application without compromising the principles that were given on religions, and that's their greatness. So we hear a little more later this morning on the glories of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. This passage is quite fascinating because we see all these layers of the application and the failure to apply these religious principles. Externally, it can be confusing because we see here's the personalities that are part of this passage. King Yayati. He is in this situation, is a dharmic king, righteous, knowledgeable, and part of a great lineage. of saintly kings, coming from Soma, who is the moon, or the demigod in charge of the moon, who was the son of Atri, who is one of the direct mental sons of Lord Brahma. And he comes in this, King Yayati comes in this great lineage, the Somavansi, or the Chandravansi, the dynasty of the moon. And great saintly kings appear in this dynasty, and quite religious, quite knowledgeable, and he is in the situation that he realized. He tells this when he gets cursed, he acknowledges that I still have desires to enjoy this material, the senses, and therefore I need the juice. This is a terrible thing. So that doesn't sound very good. That sounds like, well, isn't that what you're not supposed to do? That's where, the first thing that we wouldn't talk when we come to the temple, and then we come to, when we start to study and learn the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that sense gratification and self-realization don't mix well together. Prabhupada says that. So sense gratification entangles you in this concept that I am the body. It's exactly what you want to move away from. Prabhupada says that in the beginning of the purport, that one have to renounce all these connections to materials, enjoyment, and sense gratification. So King Yayati is saying to Shukracharya, I still have desires to enjoy my senses, so this is a terrible curse. So please be merciful. And he makes the case that how your daughter is also needs to satisfy her senses, and now she's gonna be also in a bad situation. So Shukracharya came, oh yeah, my daughter, I forgot about her. So yes, I give you the blessings that you can take the juice from someone. So, however, it goes deeper than that, and we get into that point. But externally doesn't look good. And he asks his eldest son, Jadu, and that's where we are right now, please give me your youth. Because I need, he's very straightforward. He say, I want to enjoy my senses, longer. So I need your youth. Please give it to me. Which is like, come on, it's your son. It's so selfish. It looks so terribly selfish. I mean, horribly selfish, criminally selfish. To don't have, as a parent, the welfare of your child is utmost. And because of your selfishness, if you neglect your child, it's most criminal. There's no word for how degraded that is. So that doesn't look good. But there's more to it. It's so fascinating to actually, go deeper into what this. So Jadu, he tells his father, I'm in the same situation that you are. I still have some desires to enjoy. And if I want to achieve, so Jadu he had it more clear. So Jadu's position and understanding of Dharma was, at least, in the narration, appears to be a much higher understanding than his father. Jadu say, I need my youth because it's required for me for the purpose of, because he acknowledges, I have these youthful desires that wants to, that naturally wants to enjoy the senses. But so I have to go through that in order to achieve the position of liberation. So he acknowledged his situation, but he have the goal very clear. The goal that he has is that I want to be situated in the spiritual platform. And for that, I need to go to this gradual process. So he makes the right argument, which is something that is what I was speaking this Sunday in terms of for most of us, Prabhupada say here, in general, most people have to go through this gradual process. For Jadu to relinquish us, to renounce his youth, would have been as a big mistake as Arjuna renouncing or taking renunciation and renouncing his duty of fighting the war. Why? Because that was not the position, or according to their consciousness, to the consciousness of Arjuna and the consciousness of Jadu. Why? Because there were still some connection to the world. There's still something that is there. So Krishna says to Arjuna, I mentioned it on Sunday in the 6th chapter, that renunciation is not the path for you. Why? Because you still have attachments and desires. So for you, the path is to work in the spirit of renunciation. So you have to be in this, the process for most of us in general is that process of this simultaneous, the varna and the ashram, or, working in the world according, and also with these two parallel elements, the material and the spiritual. So Jadu has that clear. Now there comes the brothers. The Maharaj Yayati has 2 sons with Devayani and 3 sons with Sharmishta. So the oldest was Jadu, and then his brother and the other 2 brothers from Sharmishta, they declined to. They were asked to, and they say, no, we don't want to give your youth because youth is great and we really want to enjoy. Why do we want to give our youth? So they didn't have the proper conception, and therefore they call adharmagya. that they have no knowledge of Dharma, or their knowledge is adharma. The knowledge is adharma. It's adharma because the difference between them and Jadu is the purpose. The purpose of Jadu's youth and sense gratification was for self-realization. The purpose of Jadu's brothers, 3 brothers, was sense gratification. So the purpose of gratifying the youth, the purpose of their youth was for sense gratification. And therefore, that's adharma or avidya. Jadu's was vidya or dharma because the purpose was for self-realization. So, exactly the same thing, both are taking to enjoy youth and to enjoy the senses during youth. But one is dharma, one is adharma. So, the understanding is there's not a problem with enjoying the senses. The problem is what is our purpose? Is what is the goal? So the goal, again, for us who are trying to understand or who are accepting Krishna's system is self-realization. It's not sense gratification, and that's what the teachings of the Bhakti Shastras tell us. Krishna says to Arjuna, Dharma avirodho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatashabda. That dharma avirodho, that following the principles of following the principles of religion, this kama or sense gratification, sex life, is dharma, is considered dharma. Is considered Krishna as actually, he's present there. So, doing the things according to religious principles elevates you it gradually elevates you to renunciation. And that's the goal. Self-realization, renunciation. So Jadu had it clear, his brothers not. And then we're going to hear about Puru. Puru accepted the proposal of the father. But Puru also was in another level. He was ready for that. He had no problem. So now we can say, well, then Puru is superior to Jadu. But that's not necessarily. They're as glorious as, but the fact is the result of Jadu's clarity of purpose is that Lord Krishna appeared in his dynasty. Puru, and the way it worked out was like this. When Yayati was rejected his proposal by all of his sons, especially Jadu is the eldest son. So as the eldest son, he was entitled, or his entitlement was to carry out the dynasty, the Somavansha. Somavanshi. So he was to be the next emperor. But because he rejected, then King Yayati took away that birthright, and then he gave that to the son that accepted, Puru. So Puru became the next in line as the ruler of the earth. So eventually, King Yayati, because this is the other thing, King Yayati also, because he was religious, he came to the right path. So after so many years of enjoying his senses with Devayani, but at the same time following religious principles and sacrifices for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu, etc., etc., he went through the program, to the system. And what was the result of that? He came to the senses. He realized, I'm not happy. This is not giving me happiness. So he was in the position of being able to renounce. So he gave the youth back to Puru, and he prepared. The next chapter is going to be King Yayati becoming free. So glorious. These are all people with knowledge of Dharma. Puru, from Puru, he became the emperor of the earth, and then you have all these amazing family trees that we hear in the Mahabharata. The Somavanshi is basically dominating the earth during the times of the Mahabharata, at the narration of the Mahabharata, which is between Tetra Yuga and Dwapara Yuga. And so there's these two great personalities, Yadu and Puru. So Puru become the emperor. Yadu he's denied of that birthright. So from Yadu, then his lineage becomes now the Yaduvanshi, or the Yadavas. And in the line of Yadu, then we have all the descendants. You know, he have 4 sons, and from one of the sons, then the descendants comes to, you know, the names that we hear in the narrations of the Mahabharata and the Bhagavatam, Vrishni and Andaka. From Vrishni, then comes King Shurasena eventually, you know, after generations. King Shurasena is the father of Vasudeva and Kunti. And then from Vasudeva, then Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram and Lady Subhadra appears, you know. And then from Kunti, then the Pandavas. So that's on that side. Then the Andakas, which is, you know, the brother of Vrishni, in which Lord Krishna appears. So then all goes all the way to King Ugrasena and King Devaka. Ugrasena was the father of Kamsa, and Devaka was the father of Devaki. So Devaki gets married to Vasudeva. So they're married within, these are different related. They all belong to the same dynasty. And then on the other side, there's Puru. And then when Puru, all the descendants, many descendants, Puru comes, one of his descendants is, it comes to Maharaj King Bharat, who was so glorious that this whole planet is named on his name. So when we hear Bharat Varsha, is named after King Bharat, who appears, you know, in the line of Puru. And then from Bharat, then we have so many personalities, great kings including Rantidev. We hear the glories of Rantidev in the Bhagavatam. King Rantidev and his, generosity and renunciation. From King Rantidev, then so many generations comes, all these different names, that are related. There's Drupada that comes in there. Drupada is the father of Draupadi. And then on the other side, in the same sort of family tree, there's Kuru. And Kuru becomes the great personality, the great king in which the Kauravas take birth. Descendants of so the descendants of Kuru becomes the Kauravas. From them, from Kuru, then Shantanu. Shantanu is how the Mahabharata starts, the past tense of Shantanu. Shantanu is the king that becomes, that marries Ganga Devi, and from Ganga Devi, the great Bhishma Dev comes, take birth. And then Ganga left Shantanu, and Shantanu then marries Satyavati. And with Satyavati, there's the two sons, Vichitravidya and Chitrangada. And Chitrangada dies. Vichitravidya then also dies. But from him, through the arrangements of Bhishma and Satyavati, then comes the three sons, Pandu, Dhritarashtra and Vidura, and then so on. We're familiar with all that. From Dhritarashtra comes Duryodhana and the other 99 brothers of Duryodhana, Dushashan, etc., etc. And from Pandu, the 5 Pandavas. And then this is how this whole Moon dynasty dominated the whole planet. So that's why we hear that, from the descendants of Puru, the rulers of the earth was, there. Among the descendants of Puru is also one of the kings was Hasti, which was, after his name was the capital of the Kuru dynasty, which is Hastinapuri. And and the Kauravas, up to Maharaj Yudhisthira, and then Parikshit Maharaj, and then the son of Parikshit Maharaj were the emperors of the world, and not the Yadavas, because of this curse that Yayati gave to his son for declining his request. So just to conclude, that to understand Dharma is not, if we look just as the external picture, it's impossible to understand. We have to obtain transcendental knowledge to be able to take the path of Dharma. Otherwise, there is no possibility. And with transcendental knowledge, then we can be assured of going through the right path, which will be which the goal of everything we do in that path is self-realization. So these are very good examples of that. Any comments or questions? Giridhari Prabhu.
I'm wondering, what is the qualification for like Puru or someone to be ready to renounce? I've heard it mentioned, like if you have desires any material desire that you should not renounce. But seems like also even if you have some desires, you can still maintain renunciation if you have get a lot of mercy or you have strong will.
Well, renunciation, this is where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta taught us. The real renunciation is not renouncing stuff. It's renouncing the desire to enjoy it for yourself. So, the renunciation of Yadu and the renunciation of Puru are in an equal level in one sense, because both of them have the purpose clear. And so the end result is the same. So in one sense, Yadu uses youth for the purpose of self-realization. So that's, he was not using it for just enjoying like his brothers. So in the case of Puru, is that he didn't have that hurdle. Yadu acknowledged that it's there. So it have to be used for self-realization. In the case of Puru, what I understand is it was not there. Although, it's a much more deeper thing, and I have my ceiling on that. I'm telling you, it's more, at least what you understand in the 6th chapter of the Gita, that two positions, the yoga rurukshu and yoga rurukshu. I don't remember that. So two paths that leads to the same thing. It's according to the person's condition, like that. So the cautious thing is that we should understand where we at, and then we can proceed, in a safe path. Because what externally appears to be right, it may completely be a disaster for you. And that was the case of Arjuna. And we were talking, Jay and myself, the other day, that Arjuna's proposal was great. Externally, who's gonna say, wow, this is so wrong. He was proposing, I just want to retire, go into a secluded place in the Himalayas and chant Hare Krishna. If someone comes to you and say, hey, you know what I really want to do? I want to come to the temple. Just leave everything there. What is the use? All this stuff. I just want to come to a temple, go to Vrindavan, and just chant Hare Krishna. Join the 24-hour kirtan. Chant Hare Krishna 24 hours there. Who's going to say, oh, come on, that's terrible. But, so the proposal was great, but, surprisingly, Krishna goes and chastises him. Says, you're talking like an ignorant person. You have no clue what is right and what is wrong. Surprising. And that's God, imagine, God, you don't like that? This guy just going and chant Hare Krishna? Yuga Dharma, or whatever, So, but why? Because because it could have, it will be a disaster for a person that is not ready for that. So then offenses, and then it can end on the wrong situation. So it's important that we understand, and that's why we need guidance from someone who has a much greater vision and understanding than ourselves. Is that right? Yes, Jai Baladev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for your class. You were at the beginning of answering Giridhari's question, you were mentioning about the Siddhantas, where he mentioned what real renunciation is. So when you mentioned that reminded me of a nice quote. It says, detachment is not that you should own nothing, but that nothing should own you. Then one rhetorical question I got from this is that for my own peace of mind is that, do we own Facebook, or does Facebook own us? Do we own the internet, and does the internet own us? And I really realized that the internet owns me. So my original question related to this point, you were mentioning that sense gratification and self-realization doesn't go together. And sense gratification essentially entangles one in the concept that we're this body. So this word entanglement, I was discussing one point with Bhakti J the other day, and he was mentioning one point, one favorite quote from Jayapataka Swami that we were discussing. It's from Vaishnava K. Jayapataka Swami mentioned one analogy that Krishna is like a spider, and his energy is like a web. Just as a spider is never entangled by this web, so Krishna can't be entangled in lust, pride, etc., unlike us. So the lesson I got from that is that Krishna is not impressed or seduced by one's beauty. He's not impressed by one's education, or he's not bribed by one's money. Unlike us, the only thing that seduces, impresses, or bribes him is prema. Prema hoite Krishna hoi nija bhata vash, prema hoite poi Krishneta seva sukha ras. This verse is from the Adi Leela, chapter 7, verse 145. I was meditating on it recently. It essentially says that the Supreme Lord, who is greater than the great, is greater than everyone. And nobody can control him, but the only thing that controls him is prema seva sukha ras, the service of even an insignificant devotee. So my question is that a lot of times devotees become discouraged, when they're in this, let's say, limbo of sense gratification and self-realization. But we hear so many pastimes about prostitutes who attain the mercy of the Lord. In the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 11, verse 19, Prabhupada essentially describes how prostitutes are even unalloyed devotees like Chintamani, and that sometimes people are forced to accept occupations which they can't control by circumstances, but that doesn't take effect the way that they're unalloyed devotees. So what are some steps one can do to, not be discouraged when one is in this limbo of sense gratification and self-realization, because that's the tendency. People leave Christian consciousness because, let me just associate with hypocrites like me. Why should I come to the temple? And you lose your determination. And
the thing we should do is is understand the importance, understand our position, just like Arjuna. No one can be helped if you don't understand that you need to be helped. If we think, we got it, I got it, then there's not much to do in there. But if you come to understand that, boy, I have no clue. This is what you said, that you quoted, this stuff is controlling me. I'm not controlling it. I'm thinking, and I'm trying to rationalize that I'm trying to be a devotee and trying to use these things in devotional service, but then I lose control. And then I end, instead of devotional service, I got into a tangent, and get into this whole bunch of stuff like that. So if something is out of my control, then I need to learn. Otherwise, it's perplexing how to control these things. So therefore, just like Arjuna, Krishna, I'm your surrendered disciple. Please instruct me on what's the right thing to do. So that is a turning point, and we have to hold into that. The moment we start to neglect that relationship with the spiritual master, with our spiritual guide, then we are at the mercy of this stuff. So we have to understand our position. Our position is like, on our own, we have no chance. So we need the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And for that, pariprasnena sevaya, you have to be, in that mood of service, submissive service, and constantly inquiring about what's the right thing to do. I mean, it's not that you're going to ask your Guru Maharaj every turn that you do, can I do it like this? Can I move like this? Should I move my leg this way or that way? No, but, the principles, the things, that the direction, when there is need for direction, you ask and you serve like that. So that's a safe position. Otherwise, it's too difficult to understand. Something appears just right, but it's just so wrong for you. And the same thing for the next person next to me is just right. So then it's right for him, but it should be right for me. So some people think, this devotee here, I also can play, I also can sing, I also can do things, and he's, doing such a great service, doing this. Well, I just want to do that too, but it doesn't necessarily work like that. One time I had this idea, I learned how to cook, and I was able to cook all right. And then, figure it out, and then when, trying to figure it out, some way of making a living. And an idea came, why not a restaurant? We're very, idealistic. Yes, a restaurant. You need to cook. You cook something nice. You should be able to have people enjoy it and then pay for that. So why not a restaurant? I tell my Guru Maharaj, I got this bright idea. How about a restaurant? And he just go, well, you're going to have to find someone who knows how to do business. So in other words, I have no clue. It's not in my blood, in this body, to understand how to make money like a business person. Someone who knows how to make money. That's, that's a requirement for starting a business. And you have no clue. So not a good idea. No, I was discouraged. So anyway, things like that. We're a little past over time, but this Prabhu wanted to ask a question, so I'm just going to, if you don't mind. Is that right? Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
One sentence, little correction. I'm sorry. The difference between Vasudeva and Vasudeva, I want to clarify. But Vasudeva is the father of Krishna.
Yeah.
Vasudeva is Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna, yeah. It's
So
pronunciation, yeah. Our Sanskrit pronunciation is pathetic. Yes, it's Vasudeva and Vasudeva. Thank you so much. Garantarashiman Bhagavatam ki jai.